All right.
We're back.
We're back. Welcome back, Jeff. It's good to see you again.
Always a pleasure being here.
I'm excited. We got episode number 5. And I did have, over the past week, a couple people that called me to run things by their lawyer.
Oh, that's great.
Yep.
I can't wait to hear what those are going to be.
Yeah, this one guy, he's 22 years old. What happened was it was the day after Christmas. It was raining in San Diego. You know how bad that is, right? For terms of driving.
Yeah, everyone just forgets how to drive.
Right. And this guy, he told me that he was driving on the freeway and somebody hit him, rear-ended his car, and then it kind of spun out of control and he hit the middle divide, right?
Yeah.
And that he had to be admitted, obviously, and went in an ambulance. He had a broken leg, had a leg surgery. It was a nightmare.
Jeez.
And the worst part is it was a hit and run. The other car just kept driving, right?
Yeah.
So I asked him, I looked at his insurance and he's like, oh, my parents, have the insurance, which was a good sign. I'm like, probably the parents are more responsible. So I got his insurance and he had what was $250,000. It's called uninsured motorist. Remember one time?
Yeah.
Which is amazing. That means if somebody hit and run or somebody hits and stops and doesn't have insurance or has low insurance, his own insurance company will cover him up to $250,000.
Nice.
Yeah, right? And then I saw the police report, and then the cop said, that the guys, that somebody hit his car and blah, blah, blah. And then the cop wrote, but I saw no visible damage to the rear end. Right?
Brutal.
Then there was a witness who happened to be behind him driving, and she said, and I quote, I saw the car start spinning out of control for no reason. And then the cop asked her, did another car hit it? No, there was no car behind him.
Oh, no.
She was an eyewitness.
Yeah.
Then, what are the odds? There was a second eyewitness who happened to be on the overpass that was kind of above. And somehow she was just looking at the freeway or something, and she saw the whole thing. And the cop asked her, and then she came down and stuff to the place, and then she stayed to talk to the police. And she said, no, it just spun out of control. There was no other car.
Crazy.
I know. We call that in the legal world the phantom car.
The phantom car.
Yeah, that's what lawyers refer to it. There was a phantom car, that nobody now knows where it is, it's from the grassy knoll.
I have a weird story about a hit and run. I think I was like 18, 19, something like that. I had was it 87 4Runner, right?
Right.
And so this thing's like, it's a tank, right?
Yes.
I was sitting at a stoplight on my way home from work. It was probably like, 9, 10, 11, somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
I'm sitting at the light, and all of a sudden I'm just like, listening to music, not really paying attention. I hear, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I'm like, what the hell was that, right?
Yeah.
And it launches my glasses off, onto the floor, and I'm like, what just happened? I sit back up, and I'm like trying to look back behind me, and I hear, and someone hit them. It was literally at the same, it was just, there was no one else on the road. It was 11 o'clock at night on a little tiny road. And I'm sitting there and I'm just like waiting for what's next, right? Like what's going to happen. And all of a sudden I see the second car back, just all of a sudden drives off. And I'm like, okay, we just got hit. They just got hit and run. And then the car behind me also just takes off. And I'm like sitting there, my glasses are nowhere to be found. I obviously can't read license plates and stuff because they're not on my face. And I'm sitting there like, what the hell just happened? I got hit and run twice.
Yeah.
At once. And I pulled over into a parking lot, just looked, and there wasn't any damage to my car. I had this really solid metal bumper. Yeah. And so I've had multiple people hit my car and ruin theirs, and mine's fine. And it's the funniest thing in the world.
Wow. By the way, that is sort of what I was thinking for this kid's case. I was like, well, it's a chance that a car hit him and that no damage happened.
Right.
Right. But the killer was the two witnesses.
Brutal.
That one is going to be tough. So it was good that he ran it by me. And now for today's topic, Alec Baldwin.
Oh man, that has a story.
I mean, as everyone knows, so he was on a set and he was rehearsing, and this, the gun fired and killed this poor girl. And, obviously, all of the legal aftermath thereafter of this tragic event. And as you know, I love following the legal aftermath, right?
Absolutely.
And for me, I always think, I'm like, okay, there are reasons why this happened. And with this one, the type of gun that was, it was an old Colt 45. Okay. Now the Colt 45, it goes back here. I got a picture of it. This guy, right?
Yeah.
And it's an iconic looking gun, right? This old Colt 45.
It's like the old cowboy gun.
It's the old cowboy gun.
Yeah.
And it has a serious history. It goes back 1836. Okay, get this. So his name was Samuel Colt. All right, now you know why the name of Colt, right?
Yep.
So Samuel Colt, he is. I mean, it's a little bit disputed if he actually invented the revolver and all that. He even says, no, I kind of, other people, but he was the first one to patent it. Right. So in 1836, he gets a patent in the United States and in England. Okay. So he was a businessman.
Yeah.
Right. So he patents the revolver. And so he gets an exclusive right to start making these, to make these revolvers. Okay. And, this is 1836. A little trivia. Guess which war was coming up that it was going to use these?
You want me to try to guess which war?
Yeah, if you feel like it.
I don't know.
Okay. Get this. So, yeah, exactly. I forgot. Okay.
1836.
Yeah, it was after I was following all this. It was the Second Seminole War. Okay.
Yeah,
So I know.
Wouldn't have got that one.
Yeah, but this is where the Colt 45 started coming in. Okay. So the troops, the American troops, they were buying these Colt 45s. Okay. And what happened is the president, Andrew Jackson, in 1830, he signed this law. It was called the Indian Removal Act, which said that all the Seminoles in Florida had to move west of the Mississippi River, which means they had to move to Louisiana or Texas, which is very far from Florida.
Not next door.
Right. And especially back then, you can't take an airline flight, right?
Nope.
Yeah. So and the Seminoles fought this very hard. They were a force to be reckoned with. Yeah. And the Second Seminole War, the troops started using these revolvers, and there was one of the generals of the Texas Rangers, and he noticed a difference in terms of what they were using and with this Colt 45 revolver. So
Trying to think what were they using before? That was like break out. Yeah, it's like muskets, break action, maybe single shots.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So this one fired, more rounds in time, and it was more accurate. It didn't malfunction. Yeah. Things like that. Okay. And then he was so impressed that then the next war. This is this one.
The Third Seminole War.
No, before. Okay, before the Third Seminole War, there was then the Mexican-American War.
Okay,
in the 1840s. Okay, and that was a war over Texas. Okay. Unfortunately, we won. No, I'm just kidding. Don't mess with Texas. This is a joke. Okay. Right. So that is when these revolvers really took off, because they purchased a bunch of these revolvers for the Mexican-American War. Right. And in fact, he kind of said that one of the reasons why they won this war was this revolver. Right.
Okay.
Now, then a little bit thereafter was the Civil War. Okay. And then because, the way the patent works is you get 20 years. Okay, it's still the same way. You get 20 years where you have the exclusive right. So from 1836 all the way to 1856, he had the exclusive right to make these revolvers, right? So, I mean, and they're the best weapon, right? So it's really getting popular. It's easy to hold, easy to shoot, easy to get the ammunition. Everything was perfect for it, right? And in the Civil War, he had the best business idea. What do you think? Sell it to the South or sell it to the North? Or both. Yeah. He sold them to both.
Yeah.
And he made a ton of money. In fact, when he died in 1862 of gout, he was worth $15 million in those days.
Wow.
Right. It's like $500 million or more.
That's
right.
crazy.
Yeah. All over these guns. Right. So I bring all that up because in these movies, right, and the movie that Alec Baldwin was making is a Western movie.
It's called Rust?
Yes. Yeah. It's called Rust. It's a Western movie. So they want, right, like this is an iconic thing, right? I mean, look at this guy. Like this is, it's an iconic looking gun.
Right.
Right. And they want to make sure that they kind of use, these iconic props, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so they wanted to use a real gun,
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
and in like you said, the cowboy movies and whatnot, right? This is it. Like this is the gun
Famous
to
cowboy
use,
gun. Yep.
right? Exactly. So he always had to use these guns, right? Now it gets a little more hectic. So this is why they wanted to use the actual gun in the movie set. And the poor woman that died, Helena Hutchins, right? She was the director of photography. So she was the camera person, right?
DP, yeah. The
DP, yeah.
Basically the person in charge, as film industry, I didn't follow the story very closely, but I did look into it a few times. Yeah, DP, so they're basically in charge of the look and feel of the whole project, in charge of the whole camera department. So she was basically the lead person in charge of how that is going to look on camera.
Exactly. She was the cameraman. No,
even
the cameraman. Just kidding.
Even more,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, she
in
was
charge of all the cameramen.
The director, yeah, exactly. She was the director of photography. Now, things that become relevant here. Okay, so she was born in 1979 in the USSR, the Soviet Union, in what's now Ukraine, all right? And she was born and she was raised in a Soviet military base because her dad was in the Soviet Union Navy. Okay. So she was raised there. She went to college in the Ukraine. All right. And then after she graduated, then she moves to Los Angeles. And then she did some work here and there. And then she went to UCLA Film School.
That makes sense.
So she's a
good one.
Fellow UCLA Bruin, right? So I have a lot of admiration for my fellow UCLA Bruins, okay? So she goes to UCLA. She graduated there in the year 2010. And then ultimately she got married to Mr. Hutchins, sorry, I apologize. So she changed her last name from Androysky to Hutchins. Yeah. And it's really sad. They had a 9-year-old son. So when she was shot and killed, she left behind her husband and her 9-year-old son, which is, obviously
tragedy.
Yes. And that is going to be, a big part of this lawsuit, like how, the aftermath of her family, right? And the little kid. Alec Baldwin, he was born 1958, and he was born Alexander Baldwin III. And get this little tidbit, all right? He draws his line of he's a descendant. Okay, what is that called? Ancestry, right? Yeah. Directly to the Mayflower. Okay. It's like 14 generations ahead of him.
Yeah.
This guy named John Howland was on the Mayflower. And this is so Alec Baldwin is a descendant of this.
He's like,
right?
I'm a long time American.
American. Right. Yeah. Right. So 1993, he guess who you remember who he got married to?
I don't remember.
Kim Basinger.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is one of my favorite things, is like the funny thing about his life story. So the year 2000, he was married to her. They had a daughter, and in the year 2000, they get a divorce. Okay, and this is the funniest thing: is he complained the most about the lawyers
And the divorce, the divorce lawyers.
Yes, he just said the lawyers just made everything a nightmare for no reason. And I don't. There are some lawyers out there that do that. Not me.
Of course, naturally.
And he said it was hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees.
Yeah,
and they had disputes over the custody of their daughter. And they had this, what's sad is if we went back over those court records, there would be not art, like pleadings and other things like about her. Like it might say, she should stay with me in LA because the dad did this. And now she's experiencing these problems at school. And that's why he should stay with me like that. Right. It gets down to that in custody disputes. It's really sad.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that was the year 2000. They had all this litigation. They spent hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. And this is after his career took off in the 80s when he started doing some theater in New York. He's, from New York. He started doing some theater. Then he started doing soap operas, right? And he was this came out of nowhere. It wasn't like his parents were actors or something like that.
Yeah.
Like he did it all on his own. And then his breakout movies was like this movie called Forever Lulu and Beetlejuice. Did you see Beetlejuice? Or was that movie? Okay. That was a good movie, right? Yeah, I love that movie. So that was his kind of breakthrough movies. My favorite thing that he did, it was 2011. He was on an airplane, American Airlines, and he was like using his cell phone. You know, when they used to say like, turn off your cell phones, he kept using it. Yeah. And then the flight attendant said, sir, you got to turn off your cell phone. And he said something like, what the hell, F this, like, it's not like my cell phone is going to make a difference. It's all BS. And he had this like loud exchange with the flight attendant.
Love it.
Yeah. That part I like, did you like his Saturday Night Live Donald Trump? I thought it was funny. I thought he did good. What did you think?
I've never liked those kinds of skits. I always found
really?
I was never a fan of those, like the impersonating people kind of things. But so I don't like really any of them. But
what?
Yeah, not my thing. I don't know.
You're kidding.
I'm a weirdo.
That's crazy. Okay. That's pretty funny. So then he started producing movies, and this is where it gets hectic. Yes. Okay, this is where he's screwed up. He probably should have stayed in acting, right? So he starts producing movies, and in this movie in particular, so he was one of the producers. And later he tries to walk it back saying, yeah, I was one of the producers, but I wasn't in charge of, the whole crew. I just was picking the actors and the casting and blah, blah, blah. But he was one of the producers. Yeah. Right? You're a producer, right? Mm-hmm. And so obviously the producers call the shots. Right. I mean, right? Like overall, wouldn't you say? The budget. I mean,
the producers are the people who are the leaders of the project. They're the CEO, right? They're the ones that are, I guess they're more like the chairman of the board, right? Because it's like, they're more like the board members, because a lot of times they won't necessarily run the production. Like when I'm doing my producing, I'm more on the business side. So I'm usually not on set. Like I'm nowhere near the set. I'm back in my office, producing my next movie or something. Right. When it gets to the production phase, like, my job's kind of almost done. So, so you can have be a producer and not necessarily be the creative producer that even like that happened on one of my sets. I'd be like, I don't know. I wasn't
there.
I was like,
right.
I was like, I don't know. I did the money part. Like, I did the marketing plan. Like,
I know. I mean, he did the money. I mean, he was one of the producers. Yeah. He's the producer.
He's on set.
He's also one of the actors. Yeah. Well, I'm sorry, the main actor. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So he's a producer and he's the main actor.
Yeah.
And there was obvious problems with this. Okay. They had a budget of like $5 million, which what do you think? Is that a lot of these big actors?
Not for a theatrical film.
Yeah. Going to Mexico.
I wouldn't doubt that Alec Baldwin at his peak could almost get that much.
And it's a small budget. He is part owner, of this. Okay. It was my understanding, unless somebody proves me wrong.
Most producers are part owners. They usually have some ownership.
So my understanding, that hasn't come out officially yet, but that's my gut feeling. So then I think, from the legal aspect, he's screwed. Okay. Yeah. I mean, very screwed. And there was obvious problems. Okay. Things that I think, if a jury ever listened to this, like he'd get scorched. Okay.
I remember seeing it was a funny internet meme where it was like, whose fault is it? And it was like, he's the one that did it. But then he was given the gun by this person and the prop director was this person. And but then it got back to the person who hired her was Alec Baldwin.
Yeah. See, okay, here we go. Okay, right before this happened, this is the big one. This guy named Lane Looper, he was a camera first assistant. That was his direct role. Okay. He resigned. Okay. And he made it known in writing that the reason why he's resigning is because this movie is not safe.
Wow. Yeah.
Right. And this is before this happened.
He's screwed.
Right. No, he being Alec Baldwin. Of course. Not Mr. Looper. No. So he resigned. And what is it like if you're a camera person, right, and you resign from an Alec Baldwin movie? Well, how does that look for your career?
Not great.
Yeah. So he was willing to risk that because of these safety concerns. And then just to make it worse, he itemized it. Oh. He said, it wasn't just like on a whim. He's like, oh, no safety, I'm out, right? No, he was very, very detailed about it. And he made it known, like everyone knew this is why. And it was so bad that there was like 4 other people that resigned with him.
Right.
Or it could have been 5, something like that, right?
Yeah, multiple.
Yeah, and he made it known. He said, there's not enough safety meetings.
Yeah.
Okay, we're not doing enough rehearsals.
Right.
Okay, then here's the big ones. There have been 2 accidental discharges of firearms already. Okay, this is before
That
the poor girl dies, right?
That's pretty damning.
Yes. That is exactly. Damning evidence.
Yeah.
Then he said there was an accidental explosion of the special effects things. Like it blew up when it wasn't supposed to. Okay. This, right? Red flags.
This is a messy set.
Yes. Right. And then he complained, and including to Alec Baldwin and everyone else in writing, that there was housing problems. Because what happened is this was all going on in this it was called the Bonanza Ranch or something. Okay. And it's a 1 hour drive from Albuquerque, New Mexico. Okay. And they had the crew stay in Albuquerque, New Mexico, which means it's a 1 hour drive and a 1 hour drive back. Right. And you know how it is. What time is the call early in the morning?
Early in the morning.
It's like some people have to be there at 6 a.m. Right?
A lot of
7 a.m.
And there's definitely days where they go 10, 12 hours too. So
yeah,
it's like,
that's what they were saying. Right. And then so there was an hour drive back, and hour drive back. Yeah. Or hour drive there in the morning. So he was complaining that his, the crew was tired and they weren't, there was one, I did a short film. Okay. And this actor in Los Angeles was going to come down. Right. And something happened. Like he was going to stay at a friend's house. And then that didn't work out or something. And then, he kind of told me, he's like, look, I'll still be there, but I'm driving from Los Angeles. I'm just going to be really tired. Right. And this is one of the actors. And I was like, you know what? That's not going to work. Right.
Yeah.
So I found like a hotel room right by where we were shooting.
Yeah.
He was like the closest person. And I had
him to be rested, prepared.
Yeah. Right. And this is an actor. It's not like he's handling,
if he doesn't perform perfectly, it's noticeable on the screen and it's immortalized forever.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So it's like that's an obvious thing that you have to, be prepared for, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they were complaining about all these things, okay? And then, just that by itself is enough.
Pretty bad.
Yeah, I cannot imagine a jury saying that these guys were all being careful with that evidence there.
Right.
Is
there anything that pins it on him directly, Alec Baldwin in particular?
Well, yes.
Okay. I was like, we're getting to this.
No. But those things in particular already do.
Yeah.
Because he's one of the producers, right? And they were complaining to him, and he had all this like information.
Right.
And then the next thing, like you said, remember when you said, "Oh, this person," okay, he was in charge of hiring.
Yeah.
And they hired what they called the armorer, right? The person in charge of the armory, right?
Uh-huh.
And her name is Hannah Gutierrez. All right. So get this. So Alec Baldwin was involved in the hiring, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's a producer, and he even said it. Hannah Gutierrez is in charge of all the weaponry.
Right.
Okay. And they're insistent on using real weapons, not fake, not toy, So she was 24 years old at the time. She had no formal weapons training. Like she wasn't former military. She wasn't a former police officer.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't, she had just graduated from college in Northern Arizona University, and it wasn't in, firearms.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a major of firearms, but
I don't think so. But
right, but she didn't major in that, right? Yeah. So she had no formal training. The closest training she had is that her dad was a armorer.
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah.
So she wasn't a former cop.
Family business.
Yeah. It's kind of like me saying, you know what? My grandmother was a heart surgeon, and I grew up, she raised me, so I could,
Here's the thing, like my grandpa was an airline pilot, so I'm pretty sure you should let me fly that plane.
Exactly. Is that true?
Yeah.
Oh, your grandfather was an airline pilot? No kidding. Where at?
American Airlines.
Oh,
no, he was United.
United?
Airlines,
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Good stuff. I didn't know that. You learn something new every day.
I actually worked on my pilot's license for a little while too.
What the heck? Why'd you stop?
I moved down to San Diego for college. And I was trying to get it done before I left. And then there was one of the last things you have to do is solo flights.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're a trainee pilot, you're not allowed to fly when it's even cloudy. Like you're not allowed to fly within 1,000 feet of a cloud.
Right. Oh,
and so
got it. See, carefulness. Alec Baldwin would be like, don't worry about it. Fly at night, fly in the storm. It's okay.
It was definitely one of those things where every time you have to schedule your flight, in advance. And it was always like a 2-hour process before you flight of pre-flight, doing your mission plan basically, where you're making sure you have enough fuel and doing all these different safety things.
Jeff wants to get right into it. He doesn't want the activities.
Nowadays, computers can do all that stuff for you, but they make you do it all on paper and all this math and crazy crap. And
right.
And so I do all this work, and then I wake up, and I do it the day before. I wake up and there'd be clouds, and I couldn't fly. I think I got my flight canceled 3 or 4 times, and like
got discouraging.
And then I had to go to college, and I was like, well. Yeah.
Oh, man.
I got into business school. Like I'm probably not going to be a pilot anyway anymore, so that's probably fine.
Oh, come on. If you want to get back into it, I've always wanted to learn. So
it's fun.
If you want to do it, we'll do it together.
Fun fact, I have done a few solo flights, though. So I have flown myself.
So you're
in
a pilot.
Yeah.
I love it.
Just can't fly other people.
There you go. Unless it's Alec Baldwin. He'll be like, no problem.
Yeah, he'll let me,
no problem.
He'd let me fly him.
Do you know how to fly on instruments?
That's the second license.
That's the JFK Jr. did it.
Yeah. Your first one is a visual license where you can only fly where you can see. And that's why you're not allowed to get near clouds.
Yes. And that's what JFK Jr. did wrong is he had that license and he flew, in where it was like a storm. And,
it's VFR versus IFR.
Yes, the instrument.
Flight rating. Yeah.
Oh, man. So this armorer had no formal training, no military, no police, nothing, and her previous experience, get this is only the second time she was an armorer. Okay. She was one time before, this is the second time. And her previous experience included like costume design and modeling and what the heck? Oh, prop master. Like, like looking at props, right?
Making sure you got all the little things that you need for the script.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And on this, so this is only her second time as armorer. And then they hired her to be the armorer and the prop master.
Okay.
Which is crazy, right? I mean,
I've seen stuff like that happen, obviously on small productions, like people having multiple roles and stuff is unfortunately is something that happens. But
right. But the multiple roles, would they be things like, okay, you're going to do costume and prop, or the multiple roles is you're going to act and direct, or you're going to be the, camera person and sound, right?
Well, you would hope that if they're camera person and sound or prop, and that they would be professional and good at both.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that, you wouldn't want to be like, you're a prop master by trade. This will be your first film ever, but can you do the armory also? Right. Like you'd want to find someone who has experience in both, hopefully.
Right. Yeah. and one of the things they said that came out is because this is an old Western, it's not, the props are different. And the props, it's very, what's the right word? Prop intensive.
Yeah.
Right.
So she had a hard job, a difficult, like her second role was.
The prop master was a tough job. And then in addition, they put her in charge of all the weaponry, the live, the real weaponry, not fake props, right? This is real weaponry. So they put her in charge of that. So right then and there, that's another thing. If this ever gets to a jury, there's no way I think a jury would think that this was done carefully.
Right.
And that's the standard. They have to add,
it's right. It's negligence, right? Okay. I mean, I don't know if we're jumping ahead.
No, you're not. You're never jump ahead. Man. That was right there. Negligence. Okay. No, this is obviously negligence, right?
So, because that's what they got to prove, right? Is that someone like that they were criminally or not criminally, I guess.
Well, there's a couple levels.
Yeah, a couple levels of negligence.
We call it like civil negligence, which just means you weren't being careful.
Right.
You didn't, you didn't. In the good old days, they said you didn't act like the reasonable man. Now it's like you didn't act like the reasonable person, or you weren't being reasonable, right?
Right.
So all these things are obviously not being reasonable,
right? So
that's a civil negligence. So you can, that's what the family would have to prove.
Civil
right?
usually means sue, right?
Yeah, lawsuit, right?
Yeah.
Now, usually with criminal negligence, that's all called recklessness. That one is like you really effed up.
Yeah.
That's standard. A higher standard. Yeah. That would be something like you went drinking and driving and you kill someone, right?
Yeah.
Or,
negligent homicide. Is that like
something like that, right? Yeah, because that one's like you were acting reckless, or something where you kind of, whatever, you burned your house down or your neighbor's house, just for fun, thinking no one was going to be there and somebody was there, right? So you didn't do it intentionally, but you were so stupid and so reckless. In fact, that's what did Michael Jackson's doctor in. He went to prison for a few years because they said what he did wasn't just like he screwed up as a doctor, like he effed up, like he was giving Michael Jackson these pills that only an anesthesiologist should give. And it was like so heavy. And instead of like, you have to monitor like second by second if you give him these type of sleeping pills. Like it's for a surgery.
Right.
And it was just for him to sleep. And instead of monitoring it, he was like calling a girlfriend or something. Like he was on a date when Michael Jackson was having all, so it was things like crazy things like that, or he was on a date with a girl, or he was like texting this girl, like instead of monitoring Michael Jackson. It was something,
crazy.
So he got dinged for criminal recklessness, right? Now with Alec Baldwin, for now, he hasn't been charged with any sort of criminal recklessness. Okay.
Is that because they don't think they can meet that threshold of like criminal negligence or something?
I mean, they might charge him or the other producers. I don't know. It's still in the eyes of the law. It's still so new because it's only been 4 months. Okay. This happened in October of 2021.
Okay.
All right. And in the eyes of the law, that's like a second ago. Okay. Right. It's probably like with recklessness, let's say you may be a 2-year statute of limitations at the least. I don't know New Mexican law that well. It could be a lot more. So it's like they have ample time to charge him if they want to.
Yeah.
I predict they'll charge him.
Okay.
That's my predict. I could be wrong,
but
it would be a tough standard.
Do you think that they're also being a little careful of the standard because it's Alec Baldwin, like a powerful actor, and they want to make sure that they have a really good case before they bring it against him?
Yeah, because they know he's going to defend it, right?
Obviously,
really
he's going to have
like really good attorneys, right? Exactly. So if it was something, a shoplifter that doesn't have any money, it's like, whatever, we'll charge him. But Alec Baldwin, before they bring that case, they better make sure they have all of the perfect evidence.
All they might need is something like Alec Baldwin showing an email where he forwarded it to another producer to take care of it and never happened, and then it's on someone else or something. Like
exactly. Yeah. That would be him saying, I wasn't. And
I put it on. I asked someone else to do it.
Right, and he did this interview. Yeah. All right.
I remember
with the ABC or something, right? And he said he tried to defend himself, and he said things like, I was given the gun, and they said it was a cold gun, and I thought it was cold. Right. And he said exactly, and then he said, I was only a producer for casting decisions, not crew member decisions, and I wasn't in charge of the weapons, and I wasn't in charge of it. And in the past, when someone gives me a gun and they say it's a cold gun, it's always been a cold gun. So exactly, he's making the case where he wasn't being reckless, so that he doesn't get charged.
I've done this a million times. Million and first had an accident.
Exactly. Right. Yes, exactly. So
I'm wondering how hard it would be to just like, on some guns, you can just take out like the firing pin, right? You can basically just render it inoperable and have a gun that still will still fire, look like it works, but just won't fire.
Yeah. Well, they wanted, that's the thing.
You also just got to not have bullets in it, right?
Yeah. Live bullets, right? Yeah. But they wanted, apparently, right? This is the thing. They wanted a real gun, an operable gun, and they wanted blank bullets and things that would show the shot and it would make the gun
blanks
recoil, right? And so it would look like a real shot. Well, what I don't get is the special effects are so good in Hollywood. Like I always tell people, special effects and CGI is so good, they can make me look like George Clooney.
Yeah.
Right?
They got the deep fakes now, right?
Yeah. They can make me look like George Clooney, right? So they can't make a gun look real, right? A real fire when
special effects are expensive. In a film budget, like you could have a $60 million film that's like a action film, and you could have like a $20 million CGI budget. So like I could see on a $5 million Western them trying to do as many practical effects as possible.
So that they don't need the special effects budget. Yeah.
But the hard part with blanks is those can be deadly too.
Yeah, if it's like really close, right? Like, or something like,
or just like it doesn't have to be that close if it's direct on.
Yeah.
Like because they usually fire something. Like they do have a projectile usually that comes out. It's just usually not deadly. But if you put it at someone's face or something, it can hit them in a soft spot and kill them. And I mean, it's kind of like a rubber bullet or something. Like it's not a rubber, but it's it's like that.
It is possible for a blank to.
There have been plenty of people who have died with blanks. So
speaking of, okay, just to show you, in terms of the armorer, the Hannah Gutierrez, she sued the ammo supplier, the ammunition supplier, saying that, I ordered blanks and I got live.
Right.
But she's supposed to know the freaking difference.
I've never handled blanks and ammunition, so I don't know if there's but I would imagine they're supposed to look and feel different.
Oh, they do. everything from the weight, the tie, every single thing.
So an
how she
armorer
doesn't know
should be a professional who can tell a blank from a bullet. But
exactly. And,
there was a story alongside it that I'm not sure if this is true, but they had like that the cast and crew like all went out shooting the day before or something. Or was that true?
I don't know. That hasn't been proved.
Included.
Yeah. So I don't know if that part is true. That would be
speculate.
So yeah. See, I'm a lawyer. I try to be careful. That one hasn't been.
I'm not.
Proved.
I'm allowed to speculate.
Speculate all you want. Just as your lawyer.
Yeah.
Just say that you're speculating.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Speculating.
Yeah.
Okay. And now we now finally the actual day of the shooting.
Yeah.
And this time I'm not talking about the film shooting, unfortunately, the actual shooting, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So first of all, you know what sucks is they did not use a real Colt 45.
Okay.
There's this Italian gun manufacturer named Pieta, is it? Or Pieto? Yeah, Pieta. And because the patents on the old Colt 45 revolvers, expired in the year 1856.
1800s.
Yeah, so you and I could make this type of gun, this type of old school revolver, and we can't put the name Colt 45 on it, but it'll look the same because the engineering's the same and the dimensions are the same.
I've seen like Winchesters and lots of different.
They have exactly. They look like this, right?
Yeah.
So it's like after all of that discussion about how iconic this is, they don't even use a real Colt 45. These jerks, Anyway, I just they use this Pieto, Italian gun, but it's exactly the dimensions and the engineering. And in the look is just like the Colt 45. And apparently, I guess a lot of movie sets do this. You know,
yeah.
And then the day of the shooting, this is a funny term, shooting. Like now I met the day of the filming.
So I had so here's this I don't want to get too sidetracked, but I did a documentary at a high school, and so we were not allowed to say we're shooting on campus. They made us be very careful with our phrasing.
Yeah, we're filming.
We're going to film the documentary. Yes. We're not going to go shoot. There's no shooting on campus. And I was like, that's such a funny thing to think about.
Yes.
I had to do that once though for a project.
Funny.
So
so
that's in my mind. Like,
right. Yeah.
I have to do the filming versus shooting thing a lot.
Because this time when I said shooting, I meant the actual filming.
The filming.
So the day of the shooting, I should say the day of the filming.
Yeah.
Okay. So the day of the filming when this whole thing happened. Okay. So it goes like this. So Alec Baldwin, it was like, my understanding is that is during a lunch break, he wants to rehearse. Okay. First of all, what a jerk. Okay. You know how important lunch is. Like, what the heck, dude?
Yeah.
There's only one thing.
You like your lunch.
I love my lunch. Yeah. There's only one thing that should be done during lunch, and that's eating. Right? What else should be done during lunch? Maybe a few things that we can't discuss right now, but you know what I'm saying? Unless something that fun, and otherwise, only eating and chilling should be done at lunch, right? And so anyway, so they're rehearsing oh my gosh, how do we say this? They're rehearsing a shot. No, a scene.
A scene.
A scene, thank you.
There you go, yeah.
We cannot say they're rehearsing a shot. They're rehearsing a scene.
They were, technically. No.
Yeah, I know, exactly. Yeah, this is the first time that has been, you have to distinguish what you mean by shot.
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah. So they're reharsing a scene, right? And in this scene, so this is where I think, this is the other thing where I think Alec Baldwin, I think he could be shown to be even criminally reckless, is he gets the gun. Remember all the things I said about the armor? So he gets this gun from a director, not even the armorer. Right? So it's like, as inexperienced as the armorer is, and he knows who that is, he doesn't even get the gun from her. He gets it from a director. Right, and the director is not is not the armorer.
He doesn't have armor in his title.
Yeah, exactly.
Director of armory.
No, he's just director of freaking acting.
Yeah,
right. So he gives him a real operable gun, and he says this is a cold gun, meaning this isn't. There's no live rounds, right?
Yeah.
So clearly I don't think it was reasonable to rely on the non-armorer.
Do you think that guy might be liable? As like the one who did something that wasn't his role, and if he would be liable for it, would Alec Baldwin not be? Could they both be liable?
They could both be liable. Yes, they could both be liable. It depends if he's okay. if he's like kind of high in the film, like if it was like a low level, let's say employee, and they're like, hey, you're in charge of doing this, then it's kind of like it's hard to pin it on a low level employee, right?
Yeah.
Low level meaning like low like title of the what's it called? But if
someone tells you to do something, you do it.
Yeah, exactly. So if he's really high up, which he was, I mean, yeah, he could be. Because
he told him it was cold and it wasn't. So that sounds like
and he shouldn't
check.
Exactly. Like if I was one of the big shots on the movie and I had a lot of say so and someone's like, hey, can you handle the guns? I would say I am not. No, I can't actually. You know what I'm saying? I would say no.
We have someone whose job that is.
Yeah, exactly.
They're on lunch. So wait.
Yeah, they're on lunch. Oh yeah, exactly. Maybe the prop master was on lunch. Or the armorer / prop master.
Right.
And FYI, they're using an operable gun and the armorer wasn't even there.
Right. Not good.
Right? Yeah, exactly. She wasn't even there. And then the way it happened was this. So they're rehearsing this scene, okay? And then Alec Baldwin has the gun. And the director of photography, the poor woman that ends up dying, she's telling him things like, okay, can you put the gun this way, so I get this angle, or can you put it that way? Mm-hmm. Then, because it's like kind of a scene where they're shooting at each other, right? He has the hammer, right? He cocks it back, right? He has the hammer back. Mm-hmm. And then, according to Alec Baldwin, he says, I never even pulled the trigger. Okay, he just says the hammer, in case you don't, for those of you that don't, this guy is the hammer, this little top part here, right?
Yeah.
So this is the hammer, this little top part of the gun, in case you're listening to this on somewhere. He pulls it back. That's called cocking it.
Yep.
And according to Alec Baldwin, he had it cocked all the way back. And then he's kind of like, and then he says, do you want it here? Do you want it there? Like the gun, what angle?
Yeah.
According to Alec Baldwin, then when he then releases the hammer, the shot, fires. All right. He says, I didn't, because this type of revolver, right?
Yeah.
It needs two actions. What are they?
So you have to pull the hammer back, then you have to pull the trigger. So there's single action and double action.
Mm-hmm.
Double action.
Double action.
If you pull the trigger back hard enough, it'll pull the hammer back and then release it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
right.
Yeah. One action, one job. Versus,
yes. Yeah. Right. So exactly. So this one you have to pull the hammer back and pull the trigger. Yeah. You cannot, with just pulling the hammer, fire. Because it won't, without the trigger being engaged, it won't, the hammer won't hit the firing pin, which causes an explosion. Yeah, exactly. So he says that he was just engaging the hammer. Okay. Some experts say that sometimes when you're engaging the hammer, even without knowing it, your finger is on the trigger.
Yeah, because I mean, if you're trying to just squeeze to like get leverage on the hammer,
that's like a natural position for the finger to be. Yeah. Plus, it's a scene, so you're pretending to be shooting.
Yeah.
So if you're pretending to be shooting, your finger should be on the trigger, right? I mean, otherwise
when you're doing the shooting part, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Otherwise, Although
if I was practicing, I'd probably still practice good trigger control, right? Where you, like gun etiquette, where you keep your finger straight and out of the loop. Out of
the loop. Yeah, exactly. Out of this. Yeah, but no, because. Yeah, but he's practicing like looking, or he wants to act like he's actually shooting. So your finger would be on the freaking trigger.
Yeah,
like it would look weird if your finger's not on the trigger.
You'd want it to
and
go
then pulling
click.
The hammer. Yeah, exactly. You want the little click too.
Yeah.
So maybe maybe he's either lying and he did pull the trigger, or he forgot, or he didn't realize it, or he was too focused on all the other things he's screwing up to know.
And it's very possible with old weapons there could be malfunctions and stuff, but I feel like they would have probably inspected it.
Oh no, they did. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It wasn't an old weapon. It's a new, this Italian gun manufacturer.
Could be So I've actually heard of a gun that is so loose of tolerances. If you grab the handle, your hand's nowhere near the trigger or like the hammer or anything. Mm-hmm. If you just shake it, it'll fire.
Oh yeah. The what is it called? The hair trigger or something? It's called something where
this is just because it was a cheap gun. Right?
Oh, so it's so
cheap that none of the parts are tight, and so if you just shake it, like some of the things will move around and then it'll fire, and it's super dangerous.
Okay, yeah.
And so like dropping it and it'll fire and stuff. Like
this wasn't the case here.
Yeah.
This one. it was not a malfunctioned or
I
an
feel like it
operable
would have
gun.
been
Yeah.
in the news if they had
Yeah.
inspected the firearm and it was malfunctioning. Then this would have been a nothing case from the beginning. And
Exactly. But that right, it was not the case, like you're saying. So and plus the engineers would say that there's no way that this would fire. There's no way that the hammer would engage with the firing pin unless the trigger was engaged. So anyway, the other thing he did wrong is it's like she's kind of telling him, okay, angle it this way, angle it that way, and then at some point, like he's pointing the gun right at her. It's like that's the biggest no. Even if it's sometimes my kids, they'll play with toy guns.
Yeah.
And when they even point a toy gun at each other or at me, it drives me crazy.
Yeah.
It's just like you don't point a gun at someone.
There's there's specific etiquette with firearms. And
right?
like if they're going to be handling live firearms on set, they needed to go through plenty of training.
Which they didn't. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like where like you teach them finger never goes in the trigger guard, like in the trigger guard at all. You never point it at someone, and you always assume it's loaded. Those are the 3 rules of gun etiquette.
Right.
And you have to mess up all 3 of those.
Oh yeah, which is what he did.
And that's why they're all 3 of those rules exist, because you have to break all 3 of them to actually shoot someone. Usually,
Yes.
maybe the trigger was malfunctioned, but
but he was still pointing it directly at her.
But he still wasn't treating it like it was loaded and pointing it at another person. So
exactly. So this was, yes, yeah, I can't imagine. Yeah, and this poor, she's 42 years old.
Yeah,
mother
and super
of
talented.
9-year-old. Yeah,
like
exactly. She was on her way up in terms of she was starting to get these roles. And where did she go to film school again?
I think it was this prestigious, this prestigious film university called UCLA.
Yeah, UCLA. She's a fellow Bruin.
I think they have a good law program there too.
Yeah. So she's a UCLA graduate. Okay, and she was on her way up. God bless her. She's doing awesome, and then, all of this happens, and he pointed the gun direct.
Right.
And in that one, he does not deny because that's what he did. He pointed it straight at her.
It'd be hard to deny that one.
Yeah, exactly. And the bullet. It goes through, it, and it like then ricocheted and hit someone like another camera person or a director. Yeah, and it hit him in the shoulder. Like it thankfully for him, he didn't die. But
you lose a lot of the velocity when it goes through another human being.
Yeah, exactly.
Jeez.
And that's where they eventually they got the slug, out of his shoulder. And it was a 45 millimeter bullet, right? Yeah. So that's how it happened. Okay. And now, in terms of the legal aftermath, right? Yeah. This is the crazy part. I usually, when I talk about these cases, it's usually then years later, because now, believe it or not, this is the beginning of the legal part, right? Yeah. The legal, how this is going to unfold is going to take 2-3 years at the minimum, is my guess. If somebody was to say, hey, why don't we do a sequel to this when this thing is done? I would say something like, all right, cool. I'll meet you in 2026. Right. And maybe we'll have a follow-up, in terms of this being done. Yeah. Because now that they sued Alec Baldwin directly. Now, this is a big deal because the movie, they had insurance. So let's say they had like a $2 million, they call it say a $2 million liability insurance. Right. What that means is the insurance company will put $2 million to settle the case, or whatever, right? Right. Now the family wants a lot more than $2 million, right? So what they did is they also, they sued Alec Baldwin personally. This is where it gets crazy because they could. I don't know, if you were a juror, what would you give the family? After all this evidence, how much money would you give them? A lot. Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's like it could be 20 million. It could be 30 million.
A successful DP can make a lot of money in her lifetime. Yep. There's the pain and suffering of the
kid,
children. Yeah. There's the
the husband. Yeah, husband. Exactly. And this is like, and unless I'm wrong, it turns out that the husband is a big time lawyer at a big time law firm in LA. I might be wrong, but I think I read that somewhere. No. Yeah. Anyway,
he's screwed.
Yeah. Alec Baldwin is screwed. Yeah. So anyway, so they're going to be going after, and I don't know what Alec Baldwin is worth, and either way, to have like 20, 30, 40 million dollars on the hook, is a big deal. So he's obviously going to hire law firms to really, really fight this. Okay. He's not going to just say, okay, here's 20 million.
Yeah. I'll settle for 20 mil.
I'll settle for 20 million. Yeah. The first thing is, you're an employer. You have what's called workers' comp insurance, correct?
Okay. Yep.
Right. And you pay for that every month, right?
Yep.
If you don't, it's a criminal issue in California. So I'm glad you said yes. All right. We could check that off. Okay. As your lawyer, that's a good thing that you have that. Okay. So you have workers' comp insurance, right? So the first line of defense that they could use, Alec Baldwin, is anytime you have workers' comp insurance, that then is the only insurance that the employee is allowed to go after ordinarily. It has to be something like gross negligence for you to be able to go after the employer beyond the workers' comp.
Okay.
So let's say you're an employer and then you have, one of the employees drive somewhere and they get in a car wreck. Right. That one, if whatever, it just happened, like like they can only go after your workers' comp. Right. The only time they could go after Jeff Fox personally is if there's some sort of gross and crazy negligence, which I think could be the case here, right?
Yeah.
So that's going to be an issue. Another issue is going to be what's called jurisdiction in this case, meaning is it going to be allowed to go forward in New Mexico? Because Alec Baldwin is going to want to get it the heck out of New Mexico. A jury there is going to be so pissed off at this guy, ruining the film industry there and whatnot.
Yeah.
And then obviously Alec Baldwin is going to say, hey, I was only an employee of the Rust movie LLC. I was just an employee. Yeah. So you can only sue the LLC. You can't sue me. I don't think that was going to fly that well because he was directly involved. Yeah. And in fact, he was
probably an owner,
the person that shot, right? So
he's directly involved. Yes.
He's directly involved, so that's going to be an issue. The insurance will be another issue in terms of if they have, $2 million liability, sometimes they'll be, who gets that $2 million? Is it Rust that gets the benefit of that? Or is it Alec Baldwin or some of the other employees? Right. And do you see what I'm saying? Because all of them got sued. And then the insurance company, get this, the legal fees are going to be really expensive. Usually the insurance companies has to defend this, right? Yeah. What they're going to say is something like, okay, we have a $2 million policy. We'll just give that to the judge, give it to the court, and the court could decide who gets it. Okay. Now we're off the hook. Everyone hire your own lawyers.
Right.
Alec Baldwin will say through his lawyers, no, the insurance company has to pay for Alec Baldwin's lawyers. Right. So they have to pay the fee. So that Alec Baldwin gets free lawyers.
Yeah.
Free in the sense that he's not paying them, but he paid for the insurance.
Of course.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that issue could take a year to decide, right? So that's why, people ask me why does this lawsuit take so long? 8 years later. These are only some of the things.
And then we haven't even gotten to any of the substance of the case.
Yeah, we haven't even gotten to the case. What case?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have to figure out where we're even going to try the case. Yeah. If we're going to try the case.
If we're going to try it.
Who's
going
to be the defendant? Who's going to be the...
Exactly. So it takes years just to determine those things before you could even say what happened,
Right.
My goodness. My prediction is there'll be a settlement in 12 million to 15 million. I don't know. Wow. I'm just guessing. That's my guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe. What do you think?
For an undisclosed amount that you'll never
could be
hear.
an undisclosed amount, but that would be what my guess is. Yeah. If they offer 12 million today, I don't know. The family should take it. Maybe not. Who knows?
Yeah.
Well, that, as I always tell everyone, you have some issues, run it by my lawyer. Give me a call. I did get some calls, and then one of the cases I talked about. So, as I always do during this time, give out my phone number. You can call me 619-672-1741. The only complaint I have is, I don't hear from all my friends enough. I love hearing stories and, it's telling people, giving them 5 minutes of my time that could save them, years of litigation.
For sure.
Yeah. So
that's absolutely a good idea.
All right. And now, if you ever have a gun movie, be really careful.
I think that everyone's going to be very careful.
Right. You would think they were after the Bruce Lee's son, something similar.
Right.
But
I think his was a blank, right?
Yeah. So, or I don't remember off the top of my head. All right. Good stuff, Jeff. Thank you so much. Absolutely. As always, my good man.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks. See you guys next week.